All right, welcome to the pod. Fantastic Saturday of games. Noon window, late window, everything in between windows, all the windows. Probably the most exciting group of games we've had all year. Just one of those great days in college football where you had something to watch at all times. I thought it was as good as it gets. We're going to get to a bunch of those games. We want to start, though, where we continue to have to start, and that is with the number 2 ranked team in the AP, number 3 in the college football playoff, and Michigan. And Friday night, Connor Stallions, our young anti-hero of the season, the unlikely leading man.
Our content hero.
Our content hero.
Yes.
We love you, Connor. Maybe others do not.
He's got an open job at Barstool if he wants one, I guess.
I'm sure Omerta will serve him well, I'm sure.
And probably $1 million documentary at some point.
It's pretty much, yeah. He's got a lot going on. He's got options. We create some weird heroes, weird stars in this sport.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
Connor Stallions being one of the all-timers. Well, he's no longer on the Michigan payroll. He was on suspension, paid suspension. Now he's resigned. He is done. Issued a statement through Bruce Feldman at the Fox and the Athletic on Friday saying, as far as he knows, no one else knew what he was doing, which is probably the most interesting part, which I'm sure will placate all of the critics of Michigan. I mean, that ought to do it, right?
Connor, that's it. Case closed. Shut the book.
Moving on.
That ought to do it. I feel like one of Michigan's problems in this case is all of their arguments are bad. They're all like, yeah, but. That's a bad place. Like, this is modern America. We want simple. Can't handle a whole lot. Kill Hardball is much easier than, yeah, well, actually. Anyway, the big thing that is going to come, and maybe by the time you hear this, it has happened, is what is the Big Ten going to do? There was a lot of belief that on Monday, Tony Petitti will make some kind of move on the University of Michigan and perhaps suspend Jim Harbaugh, perhaps not. I don't know. But there was a lot of momentum over the weekend, a lot of belief that it would be suspending Jim Harbaugh. There's a question of whether he can even do that. Under the Big Ten bylaws. And if he does, there will be lawsuits and there will be injunction attempts and there'll be it's going to get uglier and more big of a headache. Michigan obviously is playing Penn State next weekend. Here would be my basic thing though, because this was certainly one of the beliefs, is that it could come very, very serious, that the Big Ten is viewing this as a massive, ugly, horrible scandal. Maybe the ugliest cheating scandal in its entire history, and something has to be done and there has to be punishments. Pat, what would your thoughts be today on Monday if Tony Petitti came out and suspended Jim Harbaugh indefinitely, essentially ending him this season in lieu of the NCAA investigation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know what is the correct sanction, punishment, whatever. In an ideal world, and I realize this is a naive world, Michigan would do it itself. But that's clearly not going to happen. And the tenor of Santa Ono's letter to Tony Petitti, or email to Tony Petitti that became circulated a bit over the weekend, was clearly like, don't you touch us. So Michigan ain't doing it. You know, the feeling there, the thought there for me is like, okay, we are embarrassed. We have absolutely trampled on these rules. Okay. It was a low-level staffer. We don't have any discernible proof that it goes anywhere else, but we broke rules big time. And we're Michigan, and we like to think highly of ourselves, and we should do something about it. What exactly that would be, I don't know. Maybe the most tangible thing to do would be, well, who was Connor Stallions standing by and giving the signals to all games? It was the coordinators. Suspend the coordinators. I don't know. But so Michigan's not going to do anything. Big Ten is going to feel compelled to do something. I think probably should do something. But again, I don't have this sort of strong feeling this is what you should do. Suspend Jim Harbaugh for the rest of the season, suspend him for 2 games, suspend him for 3. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on that. That's bad podcasting. I understand. That's where I am.
You must come with a strong opinion, Mr. Forde.
It's either,
and usually you do.
It's either
I know.
done or Harbaugh's innocent or Harbaugh's like this. It's like many of our subjects. We take too many nuanced opinions. It holds us back. Believe me. This isn't the morning cable shows, so that's the way it is.
At the halftime of Alabama LSU game in Tuscaloosa that I attended, Greg Sankey was there, and he spoke with a few reporters about this subject. He was asked about it a few times. I think the question was something like, "What would you do?" If we were in his shoes. And he noted that the SEC has its own issues and it certainly is not perfect when it comes to rule violations, but also said, the first thing to do is study your bylaws and pore over them. Make sure your presidents understand the bylaws. And then he said something, kind of the quote, which is, "I don't wish that on anyone," talking about Tony Petitti. So if you follow what Greg Sankey was saying, you look at the bylaws, there is the sportsmanship policy where I believe it does note head coach, the responsibility of the head coach. Obviously the NCAA rules note all of that. We've discussed that on the pod before. And there are 2 different penalties that Tony Petitti, through the sportsmanship policy, can levy, and one of them is a more minor, like the standard penalty, which is 2 games or less and a $10,000 fine or less. And then there's the more severe level, which would be anything over those. And for that, he'd have to get approval from the presidents. For both of these things, though, which I think it was interesting, noted in Santaona's letter, which basically just confirmed everything we were hearing right over the weekend, that Michigan was pushing back. I mean, the letter confirmed that to be the case. But Santaona mentioned in his letter this part of the sportsmanship policy where Michigan is allowed some kind of, I don't even know what you'd call it, Dan. I don't know what the wording is on the sportsmanship policy of what they're allowed, but a response, a rebuttal, they're allowed to weigh in on this before they're penalized, basically. Yeah. So, and I don't know, I don't think it specifies the timeline of that, but this is, it is quite the predicament that Tony Petitti is in. And to get back to what Pat was talking about, we know that the NCAA and the Big Ten has, for now, not found a link between Connor Stallions and really anybody else, but specifically Jim Harbaugh, that he knew. And there's 2 different things we're talking about here, right? Jim Harbaugh knew they had information on sign stealing, which that's not the illegal part, right? The part is, did he know how the information was obtained, which is the illegal part. So that's what we're trying to get at. The NCAA, from what we understand, doesn't have a link to Jim Harbaugh knowing that how the information was obtained. So what do you do? It's going to be fascinating to see what happens here.
So the NCAA has the new strict liability clause for head coaches,
yes,
which is going to end poorly for them, regardless of this case, because it works at some level, but when you have 100 people working for you, not a great idea to have this strict liability. There should be some reasonability, but whatever. They got beat so many times in the infractions process. They passed this law. They passed this bylaw. Michigan is a very powerful member of the NCAA. They approved it too. So whatever, it's a bad idea, but guess what? Welcome to the bad idea. The Big Ten, however, has a different deal where it says the institution is responsible for the actions of its employees. So it's not the head coach, it's the institution who is responsible for Connor Stallion, if it is thing. Because of that, what one of the questions of whether Petitti can even do this is Petitti is basically saying, okay, the NCAA did the investigation, but they have to go out in this long process. So we're not going to get this done before the season. But we can suspend based on sportsmanship right away or in a quicker time. However, we got nothing on Harbaugh. So how is he unsportsmanlike? We have no links to Harbaugh or anybody else. Right now, almost 2.5 weeks into this investigation, they found nothing except Connor Stallions. So, well, we can apply the NCAA rule, which of strict liability, but your rule says something completely different. So it's like getting charged in state court for a federal law. I don't know that it's going to work, but even so, you're twisting everything into this, incredible. You're twisting yourself all around to try to do this punishment. I think the part that is, there's just a lot of grandstanding in this. Michigan is due process. Okay, fine. I agree. They should follow their procedures and their policies. Not doing that is a can of worms. It's Pandora's box. It's an absolutely terrible idea for the Big Ten. I agree with all that. That said, it's not like anyone's saying Connor Stallions didn't do this.
Exactly.
Like the due process. Okay, everyone's yelling due process. And, all of a sudden everyone's a fan of the Magna Carta. And okay, relax, Michigan fan. Okay, Connor Stallions basically admitted he did it. No one's saying Connor Stallions didn't do it. I don't know what the due process is going to come out that it's like, oh, we're going to be able to refute this. Okay, I am all for the due process. I've said since the start, Tony Petitti is driving himself right off a cliff because we'll do another one of these, I'm sure, but. Once you suspend a guy for this, then you got to suspend a guy for half of this. You got to spend a guy half of this for this, half of this. And there are so many teams right now that have everyone's signs because their buddies email them the signs they stole during the game, and they email them to the next team. Say, hey, you're playing so-and-so this weekend. Here's their signs. Well, that's an in-person scout, okay? You've got illegal signs. That is all over the place. And what happens when this comes up? What do? You are do we going to get a big NCAA investigation? Are we going to get all this tumult? Are we going to get, good luck. This is going to get really ugly if they follow these precedents. But, they should follow the process. But the idea that due process is somehow going to clear Michigan, no. Highly unlikely.
Yeah. A lot of the people of Michigan, I'm not saying institutionally, although probably some there too, including maybe Santa Ono, don't even care if they get cleared. They just want to get through this season and try to win a national championship.
Right.
Go ahead and bust us in 2024.
Delay.
Yeah. That's where they want due process. We want to be able to play football unfettered for the rest of this year. That's the extent of their concern about due process.
Right. Now, on the flip side, and this is why this podcast doesn't do as well as we could do better if we just were on TV screaming. Pat, I say kill Harbaugh. Pat says no, kill. Like that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
So I'm arguing both sides here, but chill with the due process. You're guilty. It happened. The problem I have with the NCAA and the Big Ten is it seems they are spending way too much time listening to the howls of these football coaches and the ADs and all the people screaming. The system, I mean, if all of your arch rivals in business are trying to get like one hedge fund devalued or I don't know, whatever, like that's not a good, like these guys are just yelling and, oh, it cheated. This is the worst scam. Oh my God, all this stuff. He had to have known. This is my favorite. He had to have known. Okay, he had to have known. That's your opinion. We haven't found him knowing.
No.
Conspiracies. This is why on the second day of this scandal, I came on this podcast and I wrote a story about it. This is my theory of the case. Connor Stallions is a young assistant who got recognized as someone who could steal the signs or figure out the signs or whatever it was. And this was his ticket up the ladder. Every one of these guys that are 20-something years old on these staffs are trying to find a way to stand out and become the head football coach, especially at Michigan, and he wrote a 600-page manifesto. This was his thing. And he's a straight-laced guy. Talk to people who know him. I mean, he's Annapolis. Yes, sir. No, sir. All that stuff. And he thinks this is his way up the ticket, and he does this whole scam on his own. And I said, probably maybe a person or two. Not many people are going to know. I don't think it's going to get up there. I think this is a lone wolf. That was my total theory. I put myself out there. Again, 2.5 weeks later, the NCAA has found zero connections between Connor Stallions, what Connor Stallions did, and anyone at the University of Michigan. So it's leaning, I was correct on that, at least more than not. Now, you can keep saying they should have known. America is trained to think conspiracies are vast. They are rarely vast. They are usually very, very small. So you can either believe this up-and-comer went out on his own, tried to make himself look good by tipping the scales, coming up with this ridiculous plan where he would buy tickets in his own name and show up on the sidelines of Central Michigan with spy glasses and all of that. He did this all on his own. Or you can believe that the University of Michigan had all these people in on it, and they all knew he was doing it, and they let him act in a stupid way. But then they were so smart that they were able to hide the entire conspiracy from all the investigators overnight. I think it's Connor Stallions only. Now, at the end of the day, that strict liability clause is put in there to be like, well, we want to nail you anyway. That's fine. Whatever. Again, these guys agreed to this rule. But are you going to go to the wall on all of this? You're going to twist your bylaws. You're going to suspend Jim Harbaugh for the rest of the season. If it might have been, he just got duped by the guy, and when they don't have any evidence, just because a whole bunch of football coaches want to pretend they didn't lose the game. I don't know, man. That's a lot. A suspension, like if they suspend him for the rest of the, that seems like a big hammer for. It's a lot of perception overwhelming reality. Like we either have a system or we don't. If you just want it to be what the coaches are howling at the most gets in trouble. It'd be great for this podcast. I don't know how great it is for them. So I don't know what they can do. I don't know what you suspend them. If they had found stuff, if they had found Harbaugh knew, they should fire him and show cause his ass for 10 years. But
yeah, but all right.
And done that yet.
No, I know. Now that's the top level. There's a lot of levels between Connor Stallions and Jim Harbaugh. Are we certain that there's no, I mean, like my point.
Not yet.
Do you know?
Our reporting, and also this, they haven't had to suspend anybody.
Right.
They had to suspend. They told them Connor Stallions. They suspended him right away. Is the NCAA letting? Oh, well, we found 3 assistant coaches are in on it too, but we're going to let them keep coaching?
Well, I don't know. The NCAA, if you read Santa Ono's letter, he doesn't know what the NCAA has. Does he or doesn't he? Does Michigan know or does Michigan not know?
I don't know. But would the NCAA allow 3 assistant coaches or something like that to keep coaching if they're in on it?
It's not the NCAA's call on that front.
Well, they let them know about Connor Stallions.
Well, they let him know there's an investigation. Yeah. That starts with him. And maybe that doesn't exist. My point from the get-go.
If they get him more, I'm all for changing. But I just didn't see it yet.
From the get-go, you had your point. My point was that it would take, to me, a surprising lack of curiosity from other people on the staff to have no interest in how Connor Stallions got his stuff.
Well, and just think of how, just think of how
both things could be true. Yeah.
Detailed some of this was, right? I mean, incredibly detailed, probably dozens of recordings on a computer in the football building, apparently. I mean, like you would think that others would have known or asked about this. And then, and several people have kind of asked this question to me. It's like, well, wait, ho. This guy makes $55,000 a year. Who paid for all of this?
Right.
And that is a question that has gone somewhat unanswered. But I'll play a little devil's advocate to Dan's point. We see schools and even head coaches, but certainly schools penalized all the time from the NCAA for things done by an assistant coach, right? I'm reminded of during COVID, an LSU offensive line coach hosted a family or visited with a family during COVID, and he didn't tell anybody else about it, right? And LSU found out about it, immediately fired him, and I think the NCAA levied sanctions against him, but nobody LSU really knew that he was doing that during COVID in the dead period. So I mean, this does happen. Like, even if nobody knew, it's like there's got to be a penalty for it anyway, and the penalty got to be more than you fired Connor Stallions, right? It's got to be. It's got to be more
100%.
serious than that.
No. Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there's no penalty. Michigan is guilty completely. I'm just saying, are you gonna make a move as aggressive as sitting Harbaugh down for the rest of the year? You're gonna jump the gun, or you just have to sit there at sometimes and go. Like, I love these stories, right? We talk about these I love these stories because they're mysteries. They're conundrums.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no good answer. I don't have a great answer for you. I'm not saying anything, but like, are you going to be like, well, we're just going to twist our bylaws. We're going to suspend this guy. We're going to make a nuclear move on you without this stuff. Now, at the end of the day, if you have your investigation, you do this thing and you say, hey, you're getting a 2-year show cause. I don't care if you didn't know. You guys got a huge benefit out of this, or you got this benefit, or I don't know what quantifiable you got. That's all well and good. I'm just like, this is a tough spot because the people screaming aren't analyzing this stuff. What are the bylaws, or what? Or looking at it any other way than he had to done it. He knew. And they're might not be thinking about what's in their assistant coach's email box from an assistant coach from another school that sent him someone's signs.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, this, no matter what the Big Ten decides, is going to be the most controversial thing in a decade, at least, in college football.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are going to go ballistic, no matter what the decision is.
Yep.
So that's the backdrop of that. And I don't envy Tony Petitti having to do this. Real quick, the one thing, like the strict liability bylaw was put in because what has been the entire history of every college football rule-breaking scandal? It's always, the head coach didn't know.
Yeah.
Head coach has never known anything in the history of college athletics.
Never
Ever.
Nope.
Never. So that's like, we're tired of that. We're closing the loophole. This time, it's really possible, I think, that Jim Harbaugh didn't know. It really is actually possible. But he's going to pay for, what Eddie Sutton got away with and what
everybody got away with.
Yeah, Bill Self and Rick Pitino. And so, it's a hell of a thing. And that, truly is because the NCAA could never get the head coaches because they all lied and said the head coach didn't know anything.
They came up with a bad bylaw because they were frustrated.
Yeah.
This is not a good bylaw, but Michigan agreed. Like, Michigan could have raised a stink and said, what are we doing with this? Why would we do this? Yeah. This doesn't make any sense. They're a powerful entity.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, well, the Big Ten bylaws, I don't like this. Well, who the heck? You guys have been in the Big Ten for 100 years, 107 years or something. Maybe you should have looked at it one time over the like it's your own fault. So I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't say worry, because look, at the best thing that could happen to this podcast is Jim Harbaugh gets putting the clink for this thing. I don't know, whatever. Don't matter to me.
The county stocks.
Yeah, put him in the stocks and make.
He's in the stocks in downtown Columbus. That's where you can find Jim Harbaugh.
Throw tomatoes at him or something out of Buckeyes. I don't know. I'm just saying, when I'm hearing about the conference call of these coaches. And then there's all these stories of every coach is an anonymous coach, and they're just coming up with all these things. I'm not listening to those guys. I'm just not listening to them. And if that's what's fueling this, that's the part of this where I'd be like if Tony Petitti came, I didn't listen to any of that. This is my, this is what we're going to do. I talked it over, but doing the bidding of the other coaches, again, it's just Pandora's box on this stuff. That's not reasonable. So I don't think anyone's looking at it like that. Yes, he should have known this is the worst. Well, what if he didn't? I don't know. But that's the part I don't know. And you're going to make a ruling we're just going to decimate their season. We're going to try to wipe them out. It's a big call. The best thing that could have happened was this happens at some other school. It's 5-3. And then we do a 20-minute bid on this on the pod laughing. And then nobody remembers. Unfortunately for Tony Petitti in the Big Ten, this is their team.
Yeah.
It's
incredible.
Just a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. It's the biggest mess since Cam Newton, and this one's more complicated. You know?
Yeah.
This is just, there's no direct line to get. First of all, you don't know where to go, but then there's not a direct line to get there either.
No, really isn't. I don't know. All right, we'll get to the games right after this message. Alabama. You thought they were dead? Not dead. Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe was benched for an entire game this season. He's now the star. Alabama lost to Texas, barely beat USF. Looked terrible. They're back. Georgia, Alabama in Atlanta is looking like a thing.
Yep. Again.
Ross, you were there in Tuscaloosa. What I saw to Jalen Milroe, 15 of 23, 219 passing, but 20 carries, 155 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It looked to me, this is a way oversimplification because don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to football or any other subject. It looked like they stopped running Alabama's offense. They started running Jalen Milroe offense.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Jalen, here's the ball. Start winning us some games instead of saying, hey, throw it like Tua did.
What happened? That's exactly what appears to have happened. And I think it was pretty obvious that's what happened. And reporters after the game, we were trying to get Jalen Milroe to tell us a little more about the game plan with offensive coordinator Tommy Rees and how it was different and all this. And big surprise, the Alabama robot wasn't saying too much about the game plan, brushing it off. But clearly, they allowed Jalen Milroe to do some things with his feet and designed some things with his feet. Specifically, I think there were 1 or 2 quarterback draws, but there were probably maybe at least 4 perimeter called runs for Jalen Milroe, and with some misdirection and stuff, some like jet sweep stuff. And then the other probably 12-ish, 10 to 12 runs were him, on pass plays. And Nick Saban did open the window just a little bit to give us a peek inside of the game plan that maybe was different. So maybe in the past, Jalen was, told to stay in that pocket and find somebody downfield. This game, he was told step up and if there's green grass, run, right? And that's what Nick Saban told reporters in the news conference. And boy, he did it, because about half of his runs probably were that. And it's I was talking to somebody earlier who thought that Tommy Rees in the offensive staff at Alabama we're trying to box in Jalen a little too much, the pro style system kind of thing, and that the offense should be more geared toward giving him more freedom to run, and maybe more of a system that we saw Alabama do. I don't know if maybe Jalen. I think of Jalen Hurts a little bit, running him a little bit like they did. But that needs to happen. I mean, Milroe is quicker, obviously. He's not as big as Jalen Hurts, but he's certainly quicker and more athletic. There's no doubt about that. And he's just faster in general. And this has opened up so much. His running ability has opened up so much for Alabama. And now, right? Like, here comes Alabama. Once again, here they come. And already somebody who I think would knows a lot about college football called me Sunday afternoon and said, I'm calling it right now, Ross. Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, gets in the playoff. Here we are.
I mean, it could happen. It's been an unbelievable turnaround. If Alabama wins the national title, I can see everybody like, yeah, remember that one game when Tyler Buckner was the starting quarterback?
Yeah.
And then they brought the other Ty Simpson or whatever off the bench, and Jalen Milroe didn't play at all.
Yeah. The disaster.
And they barely
almost
beat
lost.
South Florida. Yeah.
10-3 or something?
17-3, but it was like
10-3
3-3, and then it was 10-3 late. And I mean, unbelievable. But yeah, it's and again, this is why Nick Saban is the all-timer. One of the many reasons why he's the all-timer, but eventually you figure things out. You keep working on things. You figure out what's the best way to use your quarterback, and they're using him incredibly well. In that game, man, that was like two guys playing almost like one-on-one, Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe. I mean, the runs and the throws, and just like, I'm going to drop back and create something. Okay, now it's my turn. I'm going to drop back and create something. And it was great. I was actually in a sports bar Saturday night, and I had that on one TV and Caleb Williams going against Michael Penix on the other. And I was like, this is really good. It was awesome. So, but no, I mean, look, Alabama, everybody's scared of Alabama right now. Absolutely. They've got an easier path, less difficult games to get to Atlanta. They, theoretically could get there in pretty good health. Georgia's got to get through two tough games, Mississippi and at Tennessee. So, do not, for those of us like, namely me, who wrote off Alabama, maybe I was a little early.
Dynasty dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, death taxes in Alabama. I said a few weeks ago I thought Saban was doing as good of a job he's ever done with this team because they don't look that good. They look then all of a sudden they looked like really good. I do wonder how much is this LSU defense is just a mess.
Yeah,
it is bad.
I'm not taking anything away from Alabama, and I would expect that Alabama-Georgia game to occur, and I expect it to be one heck of a game. But how disappointed, Ross, is everyone in Brian Kelly's second year in this defense at LSU? Because they have some good players, particularly up front in the front seven or so. I know they don't have cornerbacks, which is, again, inexplicable. But
yeah,
how bad does this sit in Baton Rouge?
Well, just, man, over the years, think about, certainly since 25 years, for the last 25 years since Saban got to LSU, there are few seasons, I can think of two, where LSU's defense has just been really bad. One of the worst in the SEC. 2 seasons of 25 that I can think of. One of them was the Bo Pelini experiment that happened in 2020. Yeah. And then the other was in one of Les Miles's years, where LSU was one of the worst. I think it was 2015, one of the worst at covering deep balls, and the DBs were just getting beat all the time. But it's hard to fathom what you're watching. They do have Wingo out. He missed the game and I think he missed the rest of the season. You saw Harold Perkins. They got Harold Perkins. They've got guys. They've got dudes. They went to the transfer portal, got guys to kind of fill in, plug some holes in the secondary. But after the game, I was speaking to somebody on the staff there, and they say that it actually isn't the DBs. That their real concern is the linebackers, and you saw a little bit. I think Brian Kelly mentioned it in the post game about, you hear coaches say it a lot. Fits. We didn't have our fits. We weren't plugging the gaps and all that, and that usually goes to the linebackers in that second level there. So it's rough, and you wonder if who's behind those guys, and does LSU need to dip more in the portal? But it's really unfortunate. I think a lot of people in Baton Rouge feel this way. it's really unfortunate that they have this struggle on defense with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. I mean, just kind of a waste.
Yeah.
And he's putting up numbers that even if LSU at 3 losses or even if they lose another, I mean, he might find his way to New York because the numbers are just pretty astonishing, just like they were on Saturday.
Yeah. Alex Grinch got fired today at USC, defensive coordinator. Richly deserved it. Shouldn't have even been around this year. But LSU fans are like, wait, when are we firing Matt House? Come on, wait, it's our turn next. So that's how happy they are there.
Yeah. Yes, you somebody actually just happened to see somebody from LSU tweeted the news, my tweet about the news on Alex Grinch, and said, it said, God, do unto us what you have done to them.
Well, it's a good segue because USC is wasting Caleb Williams with this defense, and now they finally made this move, which should have been done last offseason or games and games ago. Caleb Williams, 27 of 35, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran a touchdown in, scored 42 for USC. Doesn't matter. Washington scored 52. Michael Penix was 22 of 30, 256, 2 touchdowns. Incredible action in this game. Pat, your thoughts on USC Washington?
Yeah, great game, and gave us a lot of the excitement that the Pac-12 has had this year. I mean, Washington-Oregon was a great game. This was an excellent game. There's just a lot of good teams playing a lot of exciting football out there. It was both impressive for Washington, but a wild indictment of USC that a team that can't run the ball just absolutely trampled USC on the ground. I mean, Washington ran all over them. Penix was good, but he didn't have to be great because they ran forever. So that's, I mean, for USC, there's just been no excuse. I mean, I having watched the 2 Utah games in person last year and seen how non-physical, how soft they were. They didn't cover, they didn't tackle. And to come back with the same guy in charge was just a very bad decision. And it's come home to roost on them. It's paid them. They've paid dearly for that decision.
So, great game. Washington still undefeated, rolling along. They're still going to have, still got some more tests to go, but they keep passing them. I believe Utah visits next week. Is that
Utah
correct?
next week, and then Oregon State. That's their 3 weeks in a row. Boom, boom,
right.
boom.
And then still Oregon waiting in Vegas potentially. So the Pac-12 is a meat grinder. Washington keeps winning. Enduring image for me and one for the season is Caleb Williams after the game jumping into the crowd to really break down emotionally with his mom, who then took a poster board to try to cover it up so they there wasn't video of it. And it was very powerful and it brought me back to we didn't even do this a couple weeks ago because I thought the topic was so dumb. Should Caleb Williams shut it down after the Notre Dame loss?
Yeah, come on.
It was so insulting and dumb that I was like, let's just not even bother with that on the pod. But this is, the sentiment was, well, Caleb Williams has nothing to play for. There's nothing left to gain. He's just going to it's all about money, and he should just shut it down and go collect his NFL money. And you know what he had to play for? That.
Yeah.
Whatever it was that caused him to, a 21-year-old, to want to go cry while getting hugged by his mother. The emotion of putting everything out there for your school, for your guys, for your buddies, for the student body, for whatever. And the idea that he should just give up that, which to me is an emotion or a feeling or a purpose that I think every one of us in life would love to have on a daily basis, to be a part of something so much bigger than just ourselves or just our bank account, that we would hurt that bad when you lose. I know I would.
Yeah.
That's life. That's what he has to play for. Life. I also find it insulting when people look at these guys and say, he better not play because this is his chance to make money. First of all, Caleb Williams has some money.
Right.
Okay.
He has a lot of money.
He has a lot of money. He's already made money, which is great. Also, Caleb Williams, at least in my understanding of him, is a really smart guy. and a very hard worker and very dedicated guy. And he's attending one of the great universities in this country. And I'm not really worried that Caleb Williams is going to be able to figure out how to make a living if he never played football again. We continue with this idea that these athletes either make money as a pro athlete or they're destitute and ruined.
Yeah, right.
It's completely insulting to Caleb Williams.
It is.
Oh boy, better go get that money. Yes, the money he is going to get in the NFL, it pales in what anybody listening to this would ever make, pretty much. Got that. And yes, it would be great to have $200 million or something. I don't have that, but I don't know if I need it. There's a lot between you better grab the money or you're doomed. And how about I just do my thing with my guys and don't worry, I got life figured out. And so that really hit home to me watching that. And I don't get a whole lot sentimental on here, as you guys know. It's a little out of character. But I got sentimental on that, Pat.
I'm proud of you, Dan.
Dan?
I'm proud
I'm
of
growing.
you.
This is the year of my
Who's that
growth.
salty discharge coming from Dan's eyes?
You
I'm not
found
crying.
a little.
No.
No,
I
but
couldn't
you found
cry.
a little flicker of a
something.
beating heart in there. There's a little beating heart.
I did not cry.
Grinch.
I did not share his cry. I was just like, you know
Yeah,
what?
right.
All those guys that said he just take the money. Oh man, this guy's doomed if he doesn't take the money.
Right. No, I
Screw you.
mean,
Caleb
that's
Williams
a great
is fine.
point. It's a great point. It's a great point. It is insulting to all these athletes to think that they have no other life. The other thing, though, like, it's also a bit of an outdated notion that going back to pre-NIL days of like, oh man, you better take that money. You do. College is just exploiting you. You need to sit out as soon as possible to protect your draft stock. Well, you're getting paid pretty well now if you're a star athlete in college.
He's in the Dr. Pepper commercial.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I mean, Caleb Williams is doing pretty well. So, I agree, first of all, with the big point, though, that, like, these guys want to play these games. This is what they're wired for. This is what they want to do. This is what they put in all the work for, is to play these games and to play as well as you can. It's not just, some ridiculously cold business decision every day that, well, as soon as I can possibly quit USC football, I will. No, it's like, I'm in this with my team, and we're going to be as good as we can. And they haven't been as good as they wanted to be, but it's not because Caleb Williams wasn't trying.
Now, if you really wanted to see me cry on Saturday, it was when Mike Gundy took that headset off and unfurled the mullet, the Stillwater mullet, for the last time in Bedlam. Now, that was an emotional moment. Gundy rides again. Cowboys win 27-24 over the Sooners. Crowd was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Going to be hard pressed to get a crazier crowd than all those Cowboy fans loaded up and ready to roll. Ollie Gordon, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma State's won 5 in a row. They got a path to the Big 12 title game where they can get Texas. This team lost to, like, was it South Alabama? I mean, they were horrible.
They got housed by South Alabama.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Don't matter. It ain't over till the mullet speaks.
Like the opposite of what Syracuse has done. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just crazy.
Texas survives Kansas State. I don't know. Big 12 thoughts, Pat.
Stays fascinating. Fantastically unpredictable up and down season. Yeah, K-State absolutely blew it against Texas. My goodness. Had a botched extra point. The snapper snapped it before the holder was ready, basically bounced it off his face mask just as he was turning to get ready for the snap. And that they would have won in regulation. But then they made a terrible decision. Again, addicted to fourth down gambles. There's an 800 number, I guarantee it, for college coaches. You don't have to go for it on fourth down when a field goal can help. But anyway, they lose that game. But then, Oklahoma State winning, that kind of felt like the way that series needed to end, because Oklahoma State is clearly the one being left behind here. Oklahoma State cared about the series more than Oklahoma because Oklahoma's biggest rival is Texas. It's kind of like Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, But the other thing, too, like if you go back and look at the history of this series, there is no reason Oklahoma State should want to keep playing them. It is so lopsided, it's unbelievable. It's like 91-18 or something. Oklahoma State has never won more than 2 in a row. It's like they just, every year, okay, you're going to walk into your face first into a fan, a high-speed fan. Okay, we're doing it. Half your face gets torn off. All right, we'll be back next year. We'll see you then. I mean, so
See
good
you at
for
Eskimo
them.
Joe's. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go patch ourselves up at Eskimo Joe's, get a T-shirt, get a beer. We'll be back. And so I was happy to see them win just because just for their situation and more goalposts thrown in another pond.
Yeah. It's tough time for goalposts out in the plains.
Yeah, the Big 12 race, man. It's there's only one team now that's potentially still in the CFP mix, Texas, and they got to go to TCU this week. Then they got to go to Iowa State. We know that's not easy. And they host Texas Tech on that Friday, Black Friday. And then they'll have to beat, right now, probably a really hot Oklahoma State team, who I don't think they play, right? They didn't play, or they won't play them in the regular season.
No. Right. Yep.
All right. How about the Tyler Bowl? What do you think of this, Tyler?
This was my say something nice about Dabo.
Oh, you want to save it for that?
Say something nice, Dabo. How about that? Look at Dabo.
Oh, you think Dabo should say something nice?
No. I'm going to say something nice about Dabo.
All right. Well, why don't we save it for you getting to say that then? I'll just say it. How about we just talk about this? Notre Dame, 3 losses, 7-3. They have 2 winnable games to go at the end, 9-3. How would you rank this as a season for Notre Dame if they end up 9-3? Pat?
I've said all along they've kind of defied definition, and that would continue to defy definition. I mean, 9-3 in a vacuum is pretty good. It really is. But 9-3 with a game you let get away against Ohio State with a major coaching blunder at the end. You get thumped at Louisville, and then you pretty well got thumped at Clemson too. I mean, they had a chance at the end, but Clemson was the better team all day. And so you're looking and like, okay, what's your best win? Oh, you beat USC badly, and that's about it.
Duke.
There's just Duke. Yep. Came back to beat Duke, but they're not playing at the level they had under Brian Kelly for a lot at the end in the last few years, but they're not playing at a level of like Bob Davie or Charlie Weiss or anybody like that. They're in between those levels, and that's just kind of a purgatory right now for Notre Dame.
They remain, we're almost 2 full seasons through Marcus Freeman's tenure. And again, I've just never seen a roller coaster of a team. I don't in recent memory than this one through the first close to 2 seasons. The losses are really bad and ugly, and the wins are pretty incredible. Some of the wins are pretty incredible, and some of them even shocking. It's weird. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's we're not there yet. We're not there yet. With undefinable would be my best definition of that.
Yep.
We want to send our condolences to the family of Dr. B. Eleanor Antsy. She's 97 years old. She was a Iowa associate professor in the School of Social Work. She died recently in the middle of this Iowa season, and it seemed to have been a weighing on her mind in her final days. Her obituary, Eleanor's
Where
obituary.
are we going with this one?
Yeah.
This is like
For the
a
listeners,
train going through a tunnel, and I
Don't
don't know
worry
what's at
about
the
it.
other end.
I
For the
bet she was a
listeners, Dan
lovely
did not
woman.
run us by. We
No,
didn't
I'm
talk
so
about
confused.
this beforehand. So
B.
we're all
Eleanor
cliffhanging here.
Anstey is a professor. She passed away on October 25th, 97 years old, and her obituary says, in lieu of flowers, please make a donation to a charity of your choice or simply say a prayer for the Iowa Hawkeyes offense on her behalf.
Prayers up.
97 years old, and that's in her obit. That's how frustrating it is to me. She just flat out said, I can't watch another down.
That's amazing.
That's it.
That's amazing.
She's checking out rather than watch Brian Ferentz call another play.
They played at Wrigley, Iowa 10, Northwestern 7. The game was at Wrigley Field. There were 6 Cub games this year with more runs than Northwestern and Iowa scored.
It's just unbelievable.
In points. Yet, Iowa won.
Of course.
The Iowa to Indy dream is going on.
Yeah.
Could happen.
It really is. It really is. I mean, it's astounding that like a team that is actually like physically painful to watch could go to the Big Ten championship game. They had 169 yards. Northwestern had 190.
170.
Yards. Yeah, 170.
170 to 169 in yards. Yeah, these stats are just unreal.
Apparently, B. Eleanor's friends weren't praying hard enough. Step it up, people. Hit your knees.
The longest run in the game was 10 yards. There was one 10-yard run. I think that was it. There was one pass that was over 20 yards. The field was a mess. Like, everything about that game was disgusting. Everything.
It was at Wrigley. That's kind of cool.
10 total third down conversions. 14 total punts.
Yeah.
How did they sell out? They probably did.
Probably.
Wow. That's one of those. Go up on the top of Murphy's bleachers, that wind howling in from Lake Michigan. Like, hell no.
Average per play. Average yard per play. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
Iowa 3.
Yeah.
Northwestern 2.8.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Tough one. All right. They hand out the Heisman at the end of the year. We like to hand it out each week. Either of you guys have a small sample Heisman you'd like to give out?
I have 2 small sample Heismans, and neither of them go to a player. One of them is going to a mascot, and one of them is going to just a university or university video board operator. And they both have to do
look out for those guys.
They both they both have to do with Michigan sign stealing. So Purdue Pete. This doesn't involve the drum, Dan. It's the Purdue Pete, the weirdo-looking, scary kind of mascot that they had, box-headed, weird.
Don't mess with Purdue Pete.
Mascot.
That guy looks like you catch a beating messing with Purdue Pete.
Yeah. So Purdue Pete dressed in Ohio State garb and was on the sidelines during Purdue's game against Michigan, and he had a big black kind of fake video recorder, and he was acting like he was recording the Michigan sideline in his Ohio State gear. It was it's truly the gift that keeps on giving. And then the other one, the University of New Mexico against during their game against UNLV, posted on the video board, welcome Connor Stallions, and then in parentheses, probably.
So funny. Yeah. Connor will be a punchline for who knows how many years. So
fantastic.
He has given us that.
Well deserved.
Yeah. All right. My small sample Heisman. There is somebody in the Big Ten that had some yardage and some big plays, and that's Trevion Henderson for Ohio State. They were in trouble against Rutgers, and they had a pick six of like 90 yards, but then Trevion kind of did the rest of breaking the game open. And when he plays, their offense is good. When he doesn't play, their offense can be pretty shaky. But he had 128 yards rushing. He had 80 yards receiving. 2 straight games, he's had 200 all-purpose yards. and he's the big play threat out of the backfield. Their other running backs are just kind of bangers. He's the guy that can take one a long way, and he had their longest reception, too. Not Marvin Harrison, not Emeka Egbuka, but Travion had a 65-yard catch in that game. So Travion Henderson, Ohio State, small sample Heisman.
I am going to give my small sample Heisman to KJ Jefferson, the quarterback at Arkansas, who I think is one heck of a football player and has been for a few years. And he is stuck on a bad Razorback team right now, but not so bad on Saturday that he couldn't go 20 of 31 for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then rush for 92 more yards and another touchdown, just enough for Arkansas to beat Florida 39-36. Arkansas moved to 3-6 on the season. Brutal loss for Florida. Not good times down in Gainesville. But KJ Jefferson got it done. He had a touchdown pass in overtime that essentially won the game. When plays needed to be made, he got it done. It has been a tough season for Arkansas. They lost by 7 to BYU, 3 to LSU, 7 to Ole Miss, 3 to Alabama, and 4 to Mississippi State, albeit a 7-3 ugly fest. But I'm happy for KJ. He's been one of my more favorite players to watch through the last maybe 3 seasons. And so they got that win over Florida. Ain't going to do a whole lot for the Arkansas season. It's doomed, probably. I guess they could somehow get bowl eligible still. They have Missouri at the end. But good job, KJ. You're a great player. And good job on the victory. All right. We said plenty of mean things. We've said all sorts of wild things. Even when I was, the guys were mean when I tried to get show my sensitive side. It's been tough. It's a tough episode all around. We got legal arguments. This show sucks. Can we say something nice though? Can anyone say something nice? Ross, why don't you get into your Clem? We know you got something nice.
Dabo.
Say
how about that?
Nice. Right.
Clemson's on a slide. Everybody's doubting little old Clemson. And they come out and beat Notre Dame. Still didn't look right perfect, but certainly gash Notre Dame. And Dabo after the game, Dan, he said, if you got some stock to spend, bet it on them Tigers. So how about that? We've been crushing Dabo. Gets a big win over Notre Dame. And who knows, if you got any stock, there you go.
It's all like crypto. Like what? You can't buy.
I don't know. Whatever.
Are they going private equity like Florida was?
Yeah,
Florida State was talking about.
Yeah.
They might.
Yeah. All right. Might say something nice. The Texas State Bobcats.
There you go.
Who have never been to a bowl game, but are going bowling this year. They're 6-3. They beat Georgia Southern 45-24 to get that 6th win. They hadn't even had a winning season in forever. New coaching staff, G.J. Kinney. They had the second biggest transfer portal turnover, I think, in the nation, only behind Colorado. So totally like revamped the roster. Much better players, better coaching, 6-3. And how did they celebrate getting bowl eligible? Their team went to the San Marcos River and they all jumped in. So again, this is a very waterborne season. When you celebrate, there's got to be water involved. You got to be throwing the goalposts in the pond. You got to be jumping in the river. San Marcos River down there, the Texas State Bobcats were all bobbing and weaving around, splashing around in there. Congrats to them on their first bowl bid.
Even the university president, right? The university president promised to jump in and if they would advance to a bowl, and he took the plunge first, I think, in like a suit and everything.
Yeah, had a bullhorn. Like, I mean, he was milking it for everything.
The stupid sport.
They're rolling. All right. Well, I'm going to say something nice about a couple other teams. Similar situation. There are 7 teams left that have not been defeated this year. One of them's Liberty, and the other's James Madison, Virginia, out there in the beautiful area of Shenandoah Valley, Virginia Central. I don't know if they're all in that exact area, but definition of it's next thing you know, we'll start Country Roads Take Me Home about Virginia or West Virginia. It's that area. Beautiful
There
area.
you go.
Anyway, Liberty beats Louisiana Tech 56-30. They go to 9-0. James Madison, 42-14 over Georgia State. They're 9-0. In the future, when there is a playoff and, well, James Madison's like banned from even a bowl. I wish these two could meet in a bowl. It's all sorts of issues. But next year, things like this will really matter because one of these teams might be able to get into that 12th spot. But hey, it ain't easy winning 9 in a row. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care where you are. And there's only 7 of them out there, and there's 2 of them. So congratulations to both Liberty and James Madison, who are absolutely rolling through tremendous seasons right now. All right, that is our pod. Thank you for listening. We'll be back Tuesday with Lord knows what's coming. Could be a while. Be prepared. We will talk to you all then. Continue to subscribe and say nice things about us on reviews and tell your friends about us and all that. Talk to you later.